Yo, what's up, everybody? Brent here. Hope everybody's having an amazing Friday. It is Friday, March 13th. Bitcoin, great time to have this stream. Bitcoin failing to break 74K, which I'll tell you why this is important in a second. To me, oops, to me, as you can see in the title of this stream, Bitcoin is, at least price action wise, which price action again is one factor of everything, is presenting uh, obvious corrective behavior, just like we saw in January, which that alone, uh, I've been saying again, I think leads to at least another hit to 62K and possibly another move to 50K. Again, I'm extremely bullish on the next couple years in crypto. I think right now it's in a sweet spot where we're finally going to get mass adoption of the assets in the institutional world, in the actual applications, and all these things. Yet prices are still correcting, but that doesn't mean that the short-term price action can't go down one more time. To me, I'm continuing to DCA and average into great coins like Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, some of the select few meme coins, a lot of altcoins, collecting NFTs. But I call it how I see it. Um, as price action wise. And if we were to get another move under 50K, I think that's very likely the last move that we will get before this bear market ends, if I had to guess. And potentially see something like this, maybe another move down. This is like worst case, or like if we were to get another move, you maybe chop out into the summer and then higher into the end of the year, something like that. But either way, we'll get into all of that. Also today, there was for the NFT people out there, VFriends with Gary V today came out, and there was a podcast that came out that was actually leaked, but really was put out by Gary V. It's a podcast that was put out by Gary V Experiences. He talked about how Veecon was going to be something like Veecon in October, mid-October. I hope everybody comes out. And then all of a sudden, Gary, a few hours later, goes out and says, "Not confirmed, friends. I was fooling around a little bit in here. Nothing to report for VCon. We'll update you when there is." Sorry to Burge. I think it's hilarious. I personally don't know what to think. Usually, when there's smoke, there's fire, right? Like, you have to think there's some reason Gary would talk about VCon in Miami, but then you see stuff like a tweet I saw earlier, where he essentially alludes to the fact that 2026 VCon is probably unlikely. So I don't know what to think. I think if VCon Miami would be sweet, that was one of the few places that I personally was, was thinking VCon might be next. Who knows? Maybe it's a 2027 thing, 2028 thing. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But personally, I'm excited for the next one. I haven't been to one yet. I started collecting VFriends and NFTs mostly after the last VCon, really about October of last year. So I know that was a little bit of a rant. We are going to go into Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and why I think we potentially are going to see a top here, at least in the short term. We'll talk about the S&P 500 rolling over, U.S. oil coming up, a lot of stuff in the Iran thing. And for a lot of you, I know are probably excited for, I'm going to do a USDC giveaway at the end of the stream, or about an hour in, to somebody in the comments of this original stream tweet here that we're on here, this one here. So make sure, if you haven't already, I'm going to go ahead and pick from the comments of that in about an hour, 100 USDC giveaway. So appreciate everybody who's on, spending their Friday here with us. I know in the UK and a lot of the places in Europe, it's later on in the day. But before we go ahead and get started, let me know two things. One, where you're tuning in from, and then two, if this is your first time in the stream, or if you're returning. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oops. You guys are looking at the Hall of Mirrors here. I'm gonna go ahead and get to the chat really quick before we get started. Say what's up to everybody. What's up, Crypto Batman? How you doing, brother? If you guys could also do me a huge favor, like, comment, retweet, share the stream, get those bookmarks going. And again, let me know in the chat if you guys are just pulling up. We're going to go over Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, why potentially we could be seeing another move down here, and what that would mean for crypto, whether about this bear market, everything like that. We're going to talk a lot about NFTs. We talked a little bit about Veecon here a second ago. How there's a little bit of a false alarm for a Veecon 2026 announcement. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Go more into NFTs and whatever else you guys want to talk about. Again, this is a time, especially during this time where stuff is relatively quiet. I want this to be a place where everybody can share share what they're looking at, their views. I know I'm gonna have some Twitter spaces here coming up where people can kind of come up and talk. But for now, in the chat, let me know what you guys are looking at. Let me know if you have any chart requests, questions, comments, anything that's on your mind crypto wise. Let's talk about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and just dive in. Hold on, let me finish up the chat. Actually, bullish vibes, hype chart. Yeah, we'll go ahead and look at the hype chart, horse meat. How's my week been? My week's been pretty good. Can't complain. Again, it's just kind of getting settled into this slow time for crypto and focusing a lot of my day on other stuff, as well as like I would advise anybody to do, stay involved, find that happy medium of continuing to show up every day in crypto and learning first and foremost. Watch a few interviews, dude. That's the biggest place I have learned over the last few years. And I think anybody can come in and start to learn about crypto or learn about the markets or really anything. Is the most alpha I've taken learning at all is watching long form interviews in a world where clipping is everything. Everybody's watching short form clips. I'm telling you, there's so many nuggets, gold nuggets of like information in these longer form interviews of like these experts, whether it be in a coin, an expert in trading on chain, one of those greater traders that Thread guy used to have on, or a founder from a company, or a long term trader / investor that's traded through decades of experience in the market. Like nowadays, there's so much free information out there. People doing these interviews and sharing their story and like all the sauce. That's what I'd be doing. That's what I'm continuing to do while still not completely obsessing and trading all your money away. Right. It's about, staying involved right now, but also when really striking when the iron's hot, when the market is going. So how long do you think we'll be in a bear market? So I don't know. I tend to think that the bottom will be put in this year, right? So we'll start with that. I want to go in more into Bitcoin in depth in a second, but to not neglect your question, Dom, how long do you think we'll be in a bear market for? I think Bitcoin bottoms out this year. And then where we go for, what does that mean? Does that mean it's in the summer? Does that mean it's in the fall? I tend to think that Bitcoin bottoms out, especially if we get a move down quicker here. We could bottom out somewhere in summer, chop sideways, and then move higher into the end of the year. Does that mean we hit all-time highs by the end of the year? Probably not, unless this move is really quick, and it's like a V-shaped bottom of some sorts. But I think in the next year from now, Bitcoin will be above like 150K, if I had to guess. I think we're going to be at new all-time highs a year from now, and potentially, we're early 26 right now. I think in early 2027, Bitcoin's higher. Does that mean, we could hit there sooner? Who knows? Maybe somehow we get a quick wick down over the next few weeks. Bitcoin bottoms out for 2 weeks, moves up, and then somehow in September, Bitcoin's at an all-time high. I could see it. Personally, I'm preparing myself by buying and DCAing at these levels and still having some dry powder ready if we do go to 50K. So, but yeah, if you guys could keep comment, retweeting, share. Let me know in the chat where you're tuning in from and whether this is your first time or not. Brand, your gold setup is playing out. XAUSD. Let's look at gold. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, you're so right. I need to put this clip out. But last week we talked about on stream the circle here that I have drawn on gold. Essentially, this is what I believe is very possibly a longer term top on gold, and I'll tell you why. Right here, we have that move down. We came up, retested these highs here, failed to break, and then consolidated here for a bit. Now, if we break lower and continue to move away from this high and really prove that we failed to break, I think this again is a very strong longer term top that could lead us again into the 4,000s. From there, who knows? You know, this could be a bit dramatic. It could be a corrective move. You know, that's a little bit choppier. I'm not even sharing the gold screen. Damn. I'll recap that really quick. So gold, I think, is putting in a strong longer term top. My producer, who's usually here today, is actually is out. So I would have normally caught that sooner. My bad. The gold, though, I think is putting in a very potentially like a longer term, medium to longer term top, or at least a short to medium term top. We got the move down, chop up, failed to break this strong, 2-month high, coming down, and then now we're coming down really hard. I think really proving that really proving here that if we do move below this neckline, that this is a longer term top. I think, again, this is a 2-month high that it failed to break, and now we're moving impulsively away from it. I'm going to show you another example of that. On gold, it's tough because gold's been up only. But something like Bitcoin, for example, we got that's ETH. Bitcoin, for example, we got consolidation here for what was this, 2 or 3 months, failed to break below the neckline, and now we've been coming down, like that. I think gold is going to go through something similar. So all you gold holders out there, maybe a bumpy ride here, and over the next few months. But I tend to think over the next few years, especially as they print more money, gold will continue higher. Everything just needs to correct after such a massive move. What goes up must correct. That's really one of the only constants in the market. One of the only things we can rely on. So with that, guys, again, if we break below gold here, I think we are going to break much lower. And we'll see here. That again just supports the case to where I think Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and in the stock market, which S&P 500, I have like an ideal scenario where the S&P 500 just chops down over the next couple months. But with that being said, as you can see, we're breaking lower here. I think what could very possibly happen is, instead of this ideal scenario I have here, that the stock market continues to trend down here pretty sharply. Again, setup here is pretty obvious. S&P 500 consolidating for 2 months. We broke the neckline, and I think very likely here we are going to go lower to kind of go into the spring, or maybe into the summer. Okay, so ideally it comes back up and we kind of just chop down. But if we continue to see a violent kind of aggressive move, I think we could see 6,000, the low 6,000s, a lot sooner than you might think. So yeah, I think all this guys is aligning to where Bitcoin, the stock market, gold, all have looked to put in short-term to medium-term tops, which I think is going to push down, which is going to go along and goes along with the analysis for Bitcoin, which again, simply price action wise, there's a lot going on in the world with the war, Iran, a ton of shit going on. But price action, a lot of the times, at least if you're looking at the right stuff, will show where things are going and set up before the news or anything in the war and stuff actually plays out. So what I think is likely to happen here, guys, and we're just looking at price action alone strictly. We're looking at December to January. Bitcoin consolidated for, what was this? About a month, and then as you guys can see here, started chopping up slowly in this wedge, or what I like to call a corrective channel. If you guys have seen my content over the last few years, I talk about these corrective channels very often. They're kind of my bread and butter. We're going to do a chart workshop a little bit later on in the stream, so tune in, stay tuned for that. But we'll go more into this in depth. But essentially, corrections are pullbacks or cool-offs between moves up in the market. Corrective channels are essentially a way these corrections manifest, where essentially they chop down in these corrective channel like structures. Usually, when you're in a bull market, these corrective channels are to the downside, right? They look like wedges to the downside. They chop down slowly before the next explosive move up. But since we're in a kind of a bear market or in a kind of bear phase, what we're looking at here, or what we saw at least in December to January, was one of those corrective channels I was just talking about, but to the upside. It's slanted to the upside instead. So what does this tell us? That this is corrective behavior, and that's exactly what played out. Bitcoin chopped up, formed these multiple kind of lows, and then eventually broke lower. To me, what we're seeing here in February is a lot more reminiscent of that. It looks very similar, and I would tend to say that this is even more corrective. And what I drew this box here earlier today because oftentimes the way that these corrections end is by retesting a previous high and then failing to break, just like I showed you there earlier, right? So what did we do here? We failed to break that high. Doesn't mean we can't go higher again. But what I think is going to happen here over the coming weeks, guys, or the coming days, could happen here again. The bottom could be, the top could be in right now, which we'll go over confirmations, may potentially, not financial advice. But if you are already trading leverage and you're looking to short, we will go over an entry here in a second. But whether this tops out here and Bitcoin continues lower from here, or does something potentially like this, where it continues to chop higher for a week or two more, I think what's likely to happen, just based on the price action, and then we look at the S&P 500 like we just did a second ago. We look at gold. We look at the DXY, which we'll look at in a second. I think what's most likely to play out is a very similar setup to what played out in January, where Bitcoin does this kind of corrective coil up kind of structure, maybe makes one more high, maybe doesn't, who knows, and then kind of pukes to the downside, at least to hit that 63K low here. Now, what's also a possibility is it does hit that 63K low, bottoms out, and then moves to the upside. Does some shit like that, right? Where it doesn't take out this low and uses this as a giant bottom. But again, we have to really see what happens towards that low. I could really see the possibility that we do break 62K there. But what I do think either way is that the short term charts are telling us what I think is a local bottom is very likely in or close. Okay. Really, the confirmation, if you are looking to short this thing, where I would be really looking to put on a pretty strong short, is if Bitcoin does this. It goes up, tests that high, or doesn't. And the strong confirmation where I would start adding in short positions potentially is right here. Is a break of this channel. You see this channel I'm talking about? Every time that Bitcoin has this channel, as you can see, once it broke here, if you would have shorted here and waited a few days, you would have gotten a lot of downside with no, essentially, it didn't go back up there. You short here, never went back there, and then it collapsed. I think a similar thing plays out here. If you let it come down and then break the bottom of that channel for a really strong confirmation, potentially something like right here, you let it come down and it does this, and you short the break of that. Worst case scenario, it starts popping up again. You set a stop loss, like let's say right here, and you're only really risking this much room to potentially catch what I think is going to be that big move down. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, and why I think this sets up to have some really good risk to reward setups, which risk to reward is everything when you're touching any type of leverage or margin. Which again, do not play with leverage or margin again, especially right now in the bear market, if you're not already experienced with these things. But I know a lot of you G-Gen fuckers are already using leverage and shorting. So I want at least those people who are already doing it, at least sharing what I'm doing to hopefully give you some insight or something. But yeah, that's what I would be looking for again. If Bitcoin does, whether this next few weeks or now or whatever, does break lower, or breaks up whatever and breaks below this channel here, then I think what is likely is or I'm sorry, somebody texted me. What I would be looking for is a break of that channel to potentially catch this entire move down to at least 60s, if not the low to mid 50s. which obviously would be a nice short opportunity. Regardless, I'm continuing to DCA. I've been buying a lot of Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, some other coins I really believe in. Regardless, but when you see a setup like this, I'm gonna talk about it, right? Um, but yeah, I appreciate everybody for being here. I know that was a little bit of a rant. Let me know before we move on to talk more about the other stuff, um, and go more into charts. Let me know what you think. Is that what you guys were kind of thinking? Are you a bull? Are you one of the few remaining bulls? Obviously, guys know I'm bullish as fuck, long and even midterm on crypto. I think right now, over the next 6 months, you're getting some of the greatest opportunities to add to some of the best assets of our time, not just in crypto, but everywhere. Not just everywhere, or not just crypto, but everywhere, for 50, 60% discounts. There's some other coins, a few movement coins, which I talked about, I think, since last stream here on Twitter. That I think there's going to be a few of movement coins. Oops. I think there's going to be a few movement coins, what some people might call them meme coins, but I think they've kind of transcended away from the meme coin category into something different altogether, which is movement coins or movement memes, whatever you want to call them. I think a few select movement memes are going to come out of the ashes of the meme coin ashes, and probably be one of the only surviving asset classes from the era of 23, 24, 25. And SPX, MOG, Gigatroll, Bitcoin, Pengu, Rect, just to name a few. I've been adding to a few of these slowly, again, with the understanding that we could go 30, 40, 50% lower. So, yeah. Cloudy asks, yo, Bren, if we're thinking this is local top, why is the sell spot? So Cloudy, I can only tell you what I'm doing, brother. Right. So again, you could have completely different goals, time horizon, all of that. What I'm doing, somebody who's been accumulating Bitcoin, ETH, Sol for a while, it's a high percentage of my portfolio, 60% of it is in the majors and stables essentially. I am not selling any big spot Bitcoin. I'm only accumulating more, and long term, like I was telling you guys, really big believer. I'm a really big believer in Bitcoin long term. So I'm only trying to accumulate more. I'm not trying to sell any of my spot coins. What I'm doing is instead shorting, um, ETH and Sol to speculate on short-term price action. Again, that is not necessary. In fact, if you're newer into crypto, you don't have your portfolio really solidified, and haven't been in it for a few years, you should probably stay away from leverage. At least maybe a few percentage of your portfolio, 5 to 10, set aside to play with it. It's not necessary at all, but you're asking what I personally do. I use, you know, 10-15% of my portfolio in a leveraged, futures account, and I speculate short-term moves with futures, with perps. What But what I would suggest people not do personally, again, because I think if this bear market ends tomorrow, next week, I think it's a 3 to 6 month window to accumulate Bitcoin in these coins, which is not what I'm doing. And I'm not looking to sell. In fact, even if we go to 30, 40K, right, I'm looking to buy, because I think 6 months, a year, 5, 10, 15 years out, Bitcoin is much higher than 50K, 60K, wherever it's at right now. Bottom in May or June as Bitcoin or a BC crypto fund. I think it's possible, brother. Like I drew out here. Let's see. See if I can get. See if I can get this. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's possible if we get a move down pretty quickly here. The stock market rolls over quickly. We get gold coming down. Everything plays out pretty quickly. We could get something like this, where we come down, and maybe in June or something, or March or April, we put in that bottom like you're saying, and then kind of move up into the end of the fall, something like that. I think that's a strong possibility. Depends how, if and when we get this move down to the 60s or 50s or whatever, how quickly it happens. if it's the final move. There's a lot that could play out, but I could see June, July, August kind of being a bottom. Done, my G. So the 4-year cycle is a thing of the past. I think it's a tough question, right? The You're asking, is the 4-year cycle a thing of the past? Yes and no, right? The 4-year Bitcoin halving cycle has already been disproven. The 4-year Bitcoin halving cycle in the past, if you go to the Bitcoin chart, is essentially um, where Bitcoin, you know, goes up into, let's go with this cycle, goes up into year 4 of the cycle, which would be 2017, comes down for 2 years, puts in a bottom, and then goes up for another 2 years, putting in a top. Oh, it was right here. Putting in another top. Okay, so we'll do this. So tops out on year 4, puts it in a bottom around, on the 3rd year, usually second, 3rd year, and then moves up another year or 2, puts in the top, rinses and repeats, right? It's essentially, in the past, surrounding the halving, Bitcoin would go up, go down for a few years around the halving year, and then go up after the halving year for a year and a half before topping out again. Now, what happened during this last bull run is Bitcoin actually made a new all-time high before the halving started. So it already disproved the halving cycle. Now, when most people say the 4-year cycle, they mean kind of what I said a second ago, where Bitcoin tops out on that year 4 and then doesn't make a new all-time high until year 3. Now, so far, that's actually what's played out. And if we don't see a new all-time high this year, excuse me, I need some water. If we don't see a new all-time high this year, guys, we could technically see the 4-year cycle, that basic 4-year cycle I just named right there, actually play out and repeat itself, despite what myself and a lot of other people thought probably wasn't going to happen. But with that being said, if it makes a new all-time high at the beginning of next year, it's really just like a formality. It's just like, yes, it topped out in year 4. We came down for 1 year and then moved up. But every one of these cycles is different. To answer your question, yes and no. The 4-year halving cycle was already disproven in 2023 or 2024. But the 4-year cycle where we get Bitcoin topping out in year 4 and going down for a year, yes, it's technically played out so far. You have a long, short. What's up? All right, got it. Got it. Yeah, I appreciate everybody commenting. I'm going to catch up real quickly now. You have a longer short position on oil? No, I'm not. I'm not in oil right now. For real, the stock market, your predictions from last stream are crazy. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Empathetic. Empathic. Uh, yeah, I need to put up those clips from last week. Also, the 2 to 4 hour chart. What would validate another move down to 63K? This is good. This will be another good clip. So, Mr. Empathic asks, what would invalidate another move down to 63K? So, 2 things could invalidate a move down to 63K. Or 2 things would invalidate this bearish structure we're looking at here. One is from here, is if Bitcoin were to do something like this, where instead of this nice, pretty, perfect setup that I have here drawn out, instead it does some shit like this, where it comes up, maybe chops around a little bit, tricks people for a second, and then just says, fuck your channel, I'm going higher from here, whatever, right? And what would be the trigger of that is, for me, 2 weekly candle, or just depends, what I guess it depends on the time frame, really, is if it closes above this 74K high with a 2 daily candle closes and doesn't break back down. If it, again, were to do something like this. Sorry, somebody's calling me. If we're to do something like this, come up here, fail to or break above, and then pull back, not break down, and then go back up again. So oh fuck, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Okay, so I was on the wrong chart. I was looking at the screen, but it was on the wrong one. Okay, Mr. Empathic, let's do this again. Okay, real quickly. What would invalidate this move down to 63K or this bearish structure that we're talking about, right? One is if we break above 72K, this high that we've been looking at here, pulls back, it pulls back like we have here, fails to break back into the channel, and then just explodes back to the upside, kind of breaking above this channel here. So pretty much if it were to go above 72K and then just explode back to the upside, I would not be looking to short. And then number two is if Bitcoin were to do something like this, comes back down, validates the setup I'm talking about, but fails to break 64K, like does something like this, and then uses this entire sideways move here as a bottom or kind of as a bottom, uses this entire thing as a bottom instead of this 2 week consolidation being the bottom. We use this entire, what is this, uh 1 month structure, however long it ends up being, to be that bottom, and we fail to break and instead move higher. That would be the two invalidations. One, the invalidation from here is if we moved just straight rocketed above 73, 74K and didn't break back into the channel. Pretty much if it broke to like 80K and broke above this channel here, the invalidation would be there, and it would be obvious at that point. You'll see a lot of green candles to the upside kind of breaking up out of this channel. But as you can see, guys, this is I'm pretty confident in this this correction we're in here. As you guys can see, what was the trigger to kind of validate or to kind of confirm that this right here was going to produce a move down, was how choppy and corrective this is. As you guys can see, this is a wedge corrective channel, whatever you want to call it, where essentially Bitcoin chopped higher, went higher, but in a choppy fashion. Instead of super impulsive moves to the upside, which you do not want to be short in, those are the ones that are falling knives, but like to the upside, like falling, candles to the upside. This is the opposite, right? It's a move up, but it's very choppy. That to me is an indicator always that the move is probably corrective and will probably end with a reversal pretty soon here. And that's the exact same thing we're getting here. As you can see here, price has been moving up since the 26th, but it's in a very choppy, corrective fashion. What that tells me very likely that this move up is going to be short-lived and probably produces a move down at least to that 60K mark. If not, gives us a fresh low in the 50s. We obviously have to watch what price action does as it approaches 62K. But I'm pretty confident, again, based on the structure we're looking at now, that Bitcoin does produce at least another move down to the 60Ks. With that being said, I would not let personally, I'm not letting this move down that I think is coming stop me from already buying Bitcoin as if the bottom's in. I would rather take the approach where I'm averaging into Bitcoin. Doesn't matter. I don't have to be some, wizard with a fucking crystal ball knowing where every move is, even though, like I said, I like to speculate on these short-term moves, but I'm not betting the house that Bitcoin has to go down to 50K or else I'm completely out of the market and I'm just going to magically throw all of my portfolio magically in at 52K and ride the wave all the way up to 200K next year and get out of the top. Like, that's just a fantasy. Anybody who tells you they're doing that is bullshitting you. I'll be honest, I do like to speculate on these short-term moves, and I will continue to because I think it's fun. I think we're right a lot of the times about this when we go over in streams. But at the same time, I'm personally somebody who I feel like is pretty good at this chart stuff. I'm not even trying to bet my whole house on that. I'm averaging in as if the bottom is in already while leaving some dry powder in case we do make that low. So I hope that makes sense. I want to get back to the comments. I know I'm lagging. What do you think about oil? So we went a little bit over that earlier. I'll dedicate a bigger segment to oil here in a second when we're caught up on the comments. But I posted in the Boss Man Calls Telegram channel. If you're not already in there, you should be. Definitely check that out. Oh my God. Empathic, you see this, brother? No, let's actually pull up the Telegram post. Not to like stroke myself off too freaking heavy here, but let's pull up the Telegram channel. Just if you guys aren't already in there, definitely check out the Boss Man Calls Telegram channel. But as you can see here, last night at, let me hide this. Last night at 10:46 p.m. here, March 12th, 10:46 p.m. I talked about U.S. oil update. I said U.S. oil came down hard a few weeks ago after its historic run from 65 to 120. Essentially talking about how, this correction, even though is a pretty strong correction, there's a lot of signs in both the fundamentals and especially the chart that a very potential bottom has been put in, and we will go back to all-time highs in oil in the coming weeks. And as you guys can see here, I said 3 days of consolidation and an inverse head and shoulders pattern. I'll just spell it out here. As you guys can see, I said inverse head and shoulders right here. We got 3 days of consolidation, a shift back up. And then last night I said, look for a kind of a mini correction to the downside before climbing higher. And then now what do we see here? Let's see. What do we see here? Let me shift to the oil charts. Damn. Let me shift back to the US oil chart. As you guys can see here, came right down to that EMA like we thought depicted, literally like right down there. That's pretty crazy. I did not, to be honest with you, I was asleep. I woke up, I had like 3 different calls I had to handle. And then all this, obviously I didn't put a buy limit right here. Why would I, right? Why would I want to catch the fucking perfect entry that I put out in the Telegram? But anyway, whoever caught this, fucking congratulations. I'm kind of tempted to long here. I think it goes back to all-time highs. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean Iran just starts bombing? The Iran bombing starts happening more. Something happened that, escalates somewhere else. I don't know. All I know is that oil looks like it's already come out of this correction. We've already cleared this high. I think it climbs higher. What does that mean for everything else? I think it supports the theory that I think all risk assets guys, including Bitcoin ETH Sol, are telling me price action wise that we are going to head lower, probably into the next few months. Oil also looks like it wants to head higher. That matches up in my eyes, and I don't know what that means fundamentally. I don't know if we start going into a more, the war starts accelerating or not, but oil looks like it wants to climb higher to me. Do I have a long on oil? I do not, but yeah, like I said, I'm sure you heard me right there. Yo, what's good, everyone? What's up, Juicy? Shout out to all the DGens, says Crypto Spud. Crypto Comrade says during Q4, a lot of the majors went to all-time highs. Does that mean we had a quick bull run? I think we were in a bull run from 2022 to the end of 2025. We retested that all-time high on Bitcoin. We retested that all-time high on Bitcoin. It failed to break to kind of form like a, well, no, we barely broke it actually. Bitcoin did make an all-time high. So technically put in its all-time high in October, November, and it's been down since. Obviously, there's people who are going to argue that we are going to see a bear market bottom and that we move higher to end the year. And that technically would mean that we were in a bull market the entire time. What I think is most likely to happen is that we do probably see another leg higher here if we do break down through 62K. And in that case, I think that would confirm a more long-term like bear market, like a traditional bear market from 2022. So, I mean, it's really all semantics. Some people call what we're in right now still bull market. I personally think that this is different than obviously the 20-30% corrections that we've seen in April and in summer of 24 and all these other places. And probably looks by the end, I think looking back at this correction we're seeing here now for Bitcoin, it's probably going to look a lot more like 2021, 2022, and less like these, where it's a longer drawn out bear market with multiple lows that are formed versus something like 2024, which was a lot more corrective and quick, right? So I hope that answers your question. Important question: how to survive 2x longs placed too high? Margin is not expensive. I would set stop losses even if you're using a margin account because it's just like, or 2x account, because there's nothing worse than being caught in a negative trade. And say that you accidentally, unfortunately, buy the very top. But put in the, sorry, even if you could somehow get caught to the very top, unfortunately, or the very bottom, on a longer short, and then you blow an account on 2x. Who knows? 10-10. A lot of people were 2x longs on margin and they got completely blown out. Obviously, that's rare, but you just never know what's going to happen. You want to set a stop loss anytime you're using leverage. I'm going to go ahead and retweet the stream really quick, guys. If you guys could like, comment, retweet, that'll be awesome as well. Let's see. Where I pull up. Let's see here. All right. All right. Perfect. Any news we should be looking forward to receive in our favor? Oh, my screen's kind of freezing. Not so much news, brother. Again, I think I would say the what's it called? The what's it called? The Clarity Act coming out here shortly in the next few months, I think is going to be big for the long term of crypto and allowing founders to build and a lot of other cool shit going on to happen in crypto long term. But as far as like some short term thing that's going to create the bottom, I think the next few 6 to 12 months, you're looking for that Clarity Act. You're looking for rates to continue to drop, and then potentially more quantitative easing with money printing, stuff like that to look forward to. I think there's a lot of institutional and great stuff going on in crypto in the background. Boss Bren, if Bitcoin breaks down from the setup, which altcoins do you think will get hit the hardest? I think everything will get hit the hardest. Usually the lower caps are going to get hit even harder out of anything. Can you elaborate on Bossman's bullish perspective and how that opposes yours? Yeah, there's a time. Most of the time, Bossman and I are pretty aligned. We think pretty similar on a lot of stuff. Him and I have been working together for a long time, for 2 or 3 years. But there's times where, Bossman will be bullish short term, where he thinks that we might hit 83, 84K. He's seeing something different that I'm looking at or whatever. And there's times where vice versa. Like right now, I'm again looking more at this being a very obvious wedge, like like this one in 2025, and of course, I'm sorry, in the end of 25 and in January. Obviously, to most, that's one piece of information. But then you and I, you guys, we over the last hour or so, we've gone over how the S&P 500 looks like it wants to roll over, and that it's put in a longer term, at least a short to medium term top. And then we have Bitcoin, and then we have DXY, which is climbing up. We haven't talked about yet. Another post I put out in the Telegram a few weeks ago that the DXY is approaching a very obvious level here, or a very important level here. It's a consolidation here. A bottom. We've failed to break this high at 2025 or January. This June low. I'm getting fucking tongue twisted. This low from June, we failed to break that in January, and now we're approaching this major high where if we do break above this consolidation high, I think very likely leads to Bitcoin exploding back to the upside, and potentially putting in something like this. Now it doesn't have to go to 104. It could go higher. It could go lower for all I know. 103. Could go to 107 for all I know, but I think it very likely could put in a lower high like we're seeing here. That then later on this year, like we were talking about in August, September, whatever else we were maybe, whatever it may be, and then get that move down on 70. Gold goes up, US oil comes down, stuff like that I think happens in a lower high on the higher time frames for DXY. So if you're a DXY guy, maybe you're a Forex guy, whatever it may be, potentially keep an eye on this because it is breaking above what could be a 8-month high here, 7-month high here for DXY. Again, another data point, which somebody just asked about the opposing bullish and bearish views. This is another, data point that I think supports my bearish view to the downside. So let's see what happens. Can you give us a short setup? Yeah, I went over it a little bit earlier, but ETH, for example, kind of what I'm focusing on. Um, ETH, kind of what I'm focusing on is a really strong, a strong confirmation and a setup that I think is something that you could take with a pretty low risk to reward or pretty high risk to reward ratio. Would be something like this. For example, right on December to January, that's kind of the most applicable or comparable correction to what I think we're seeing right now. I think shorting the break of a kind of corrective channel like we're seeing here, the break of the corrective channel, something like this, where Bitcoin breaks that corrective channel and you short the break of that. As you can see in December to January, you would have held that. It produced a big move down after that. So I think a kind of a safe short setup. You could short it now. It could come up. Maybe a good setup is if it were to come up a little bit higher, short there. But if you want to be really safe, who asked this? Sod. If you want to be really safe, bro, and you really want to, have a really high probability short here, I would wait until we break, just like I said here, we break the bottom of that corrective channel. Again, you could put a stop loss maybe up here, and then you have a stop loss up here. Um, you have a stop loss up here, so you're essentially risking what is like $100 a price to potentially catch at least 200, and if it goes to like 1500, you're looking to catch at least $500 of price action. So that's like a 6 to 1 risk to reward ratio. I really like that. That's what I'm kind of waiting for. I might sprinkle in a few shorts if we do come up one more time here. But for me, what I would do is there'd be two short setups. If you're going to take the riskier one, potentially wait till we come up to around 2100, short there with a stop loss maybe at 2230, 2240. So if it comes higher, you're able to get stopped out. With take profits, I think in the, layered between here and like 1700. And then the really safe short setup would be waiting for it to break the corrective channel here, maybe short 22,000 with a stop loss if it came back here to like maybe 2150. So you're risking $150 of price action to potentially catch, three, four, five, $600 of price action. I think it's a good risk to reward ratio. So those are two setups. I hope help. Do you think NFT events like Veecon still relevant in the cycle? Yeah, and in fact, I think they're extremely relevant, or even more relevant than they were a few years ago. We'll talk about a little bit about that here in a second. Or is it consolidation right now? It dipped, but not too much. I have a question. If I bought Bitcoin at 82K and it goes to all-time highs, how should I set my tech? Again, it just depends on your long-term. I keep saying again too much. Sod, it depends on your long-term goals, bro. If you have a long-term outlook on Bitcoin, like I do, I'm holding long-term. If you're trying to catch a 30, 50, 2x move on it, maybe layer your take profits, and if it goes to 150, maybe take 25% off. If it goes to 175, take 25% off, so on and so forth. And that's what I would be doing if I were to be looking to take profits. Bitcoin looks like it's formed a head and shoulders on the higher time frames, where but yeah, I think we're gonna see a move down here soon. We haven't talked about Sui. What's up with that? Sui, same kind of thing. I think Sui is like a top 5 L1, and I think it will make its recovery when the majors do. So Sui's putting in a nice bottom, but again, or at least putting in a nice consolidation. But again, could easily turn into something like that if Bitcoin does ride lower. So I've been accumulating a little bit of SUI, but if it were to break lower into closer to 50 cents, I think that's a really good place to buy if we do get there. SUI almost down. What is this? 80% now. If it gives you a 90% correction on SUI, I'd be buying that all day, all day. I'm anticipating that it'll dip lower. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you reposting the stream. Juicy. If you guys could please like, comment, retweet, share the stream, be much appreciated. We'll go back to Bitcoin, look what it's doing in a second. What's the one level that changes your bias? Again, if we were to go to like 84, 85K, I think it probably continues higher. I have a feeling that the majors will outperform the alts this cycle. Yeah. Do you think Sol could do another ETH? I don't know. I think Sol's a nice buy here when it's time as well. Sol potentially again been coming up, but it's looking corrective, guys. I think that we're going to get a move down here on Sol. Whether it breaks 75K or not, we'll see. But yeah, this looks weak. I think in the coming weeks we're going to see a move down in Bitcoin. What does that mean for everything else? That means even if you're not a Bitcoin and ETH guy, it means that the crypto bear market progresses quicker. Potentially, we get a move down in the summer or a bottom out in the summer, and then we finally, end that move. If you're an NFT collector, if ETH breaks lower, even if you get ETH prices holding up, you're going to see your same NFTs that you were buying right now just simply cheaper in USD. That's great for new people coming in. That's great for somebody like myself who wants to buy a few more VF1s. I've kind of stepped back from buying NFTs too much. I bought a few quirkies. Quirkies are great. Shout out to my boy Poppy. He's absolutely killing it. But I've just kind of waited for this time specifically because I do have thought that we are going to get another move down in ETH. And when that happens, I'm going to be buying a ton. At least my goal is 40 VF1s this year. I'm already at 31. Realistically, I like even more, closer to 45. I'd like to buy a few more other NFTs and stuff. But, obviously for those of us wanting to accumulate and, collect more NFTs, I think that's a great thing. So watching what Bitcoin does in ETH and Sol, I think it drives the entire market. So at least knowing what standard, kind of what's going on and what's happening a little bit, I think is something that everybody should be looking at. You don't have to be a wizard and know exactly what Fibonacci Bitcoin's about to hit and its RSI. You don't have to memorize all this crazy shit, but just knowing kind of if it's consolidating, or like knowing if it's in a corrective structure like we're talking about here, like we saw in January, or it's more forming a consolidation like we saw at previous bottoms. I think those kind of things can separate you from the crowd who has no fucking clue what they're talking about, or I'm sorry, no idea what they're looking at when it comes to charts. So yeah, to kind of conclude, guys, I think we're very close to seeing a top on Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol if we haven't seen it already. I essentially think this corrective structure that we're looking at here is very similar, and it's going to play out very similar to what we saw at the end of 2025 into 2026 in January, and which I think leads to that leg lower to start the year. I'm sorry, to start the year. To start maybe start April or to finish this month. Again, I think all the signs are there. It looks very, as you can see here, even if you know nothing about charts, you can tell that this is very similar to what we're seeing here in price action, where it's a wedge, where essentially it's moving up, right? But it's moving up in a choppy fashion where there's highs, lows, playing in these channels. Oftentimes, these channels tell us that the move up or down we're seeing is short lived and you're going to reverse back to the downside or upside soon. Similar thing we're seeing here. We're seeing, again, to conclude, we're seeing the S&P 500 also looking like it's putting in a big major top. We're seeing US oil, which we're looking at, very likely putting in a bottom that takes us back to all-time highs. It's already pumping here to the upside, playing out exactly to the setup I put out in the Telegram yesterday. I think this reaches, or at least retests, this all-time high. I think all of this information together is kind of falling in line into this kind of mini bear case for crypto, probably to produce what's most likely the final low for Bitcoin, ETH, Sol to end this bear market. We may have to wait a few months for it to play out. Again, that doesn't make us a bear. That doesn't make us, not extremely bullish on crypto. Again, I'm so bullish over the next 6 months, but I just knowing what I know about charts and studying these patterns, I'd be a bullshitter. I'd be stupid to not point out the obvious kind of similarities between what we're seeing here in January. To most of us, that should mean nothing. That just means more time and more time to accumulate crypto. For those of us who are longing here, I would just be cautious. Doesn't mean we don't go up here. I could be wrong. I've been wrong at times. Been wrong. I've been right a lot of times about these type of stuff, but I've been wrong. We've caught a lot of great plays this year. For example, really the best one is this ETH long that we caught the end of last year. We're essentially longing from like here. So April, this time last year, actually, pretty much catching this entire move up on ETH from 4,900 or from like 2,000 to 4,900. A lot of stuff like that, a lot of great moves like that. And I think we're going to catch another great long sometime this year or the end of next or the beginning of next year, the end of this year. But we got to be patient. And I think for now, for those of us who are using leverage, may potentially want to pay attention to this short setup. But again, not financial advice. I'm extremely bullish over the next few months and especially over the next few years. But I think there's evidence to point that we may see a leg lower here in the short term. I bought Sol at 88. Nice, nice, nice. If war drives inflation higher, does that mean higher rates for longer? These are some great questions. That's tough to say, right? I don't know. I don't know what what happens there if they're not able to get U.S. oil down. Does that spike inflation, which then spikes? Does rate cuts stay? I don't know. Maybe I tend to think that if the stock market collapses, if we start to see bonds go up, like you start to see really crisis in the market, that's likely going to produce. Historically, that produces the Fed to react and start to lower rates. But I think what comes with that will probably be high unemployment and a lot of other shit going on. Alrighty. Do you think ETH will break the recent lows? I think there's a good chance, brother. Would you say 2026 is a good year to accumulate the big three? I think it's a great year to accumulate the big three. I think it's an amazing year to accumulate the big three. I really do. For those of you guys who are NFT guys, crazy day today in Veecon news. Obviously, Gary V comes out. Well, not comes out. There was a podcast that quote unquote leaked, which essentially means there's just a podcast that came out on Spotify where Gary put out by Gary V Experiences, which is his podcast channel or whatever. He puts out this AI influencers thing, and essentially he talks about here. I'll just show it.
I think everyone here should get out into the real world, do more things with their fans, do more events like this. I could not be more bullish on analog, real life, tangible, pop-up stores, pop-up events, appearances. Listen, some of you are introverted. Some of you, listen, again, one thing that sucks about being fabulous, sometimes you have weird shit going on, right? You're worried about safety. Like, I get it. But all of that included, there are workarounds and you can do it. I always tell people that use that. I'm like, there's more fabulous people than you and they figured it out. Like, you can figure all those things out. I would highly recommend people getting more analog and out there. And so I'm very bullish on it.
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here.
AI can do that.
That's right.
Okay, I thought this was going to pull up, but essentially he says in this clip here that we're having a Veecon in 2026 in mid-October. I hope everybody's able to come. So, of course, myself, like the fucking hype beast I am, reposts it. Other people start reposting it. And then Gary comes out and says this along with a few other tweets. He says, not confirmed, friends. I was fooling around a little in here. Nothing to report for Veecon. We'll update when there is. That's on me. There's a lot of comments. He also replied to somebody else saying 2026 is unlikely. So I don't know what to believe. Usually when there's smoke, there's fire. He said some stuff has changed since then, even though this interview is from a week ago. So I don't know what to believe. Who knows? Maybe they'll come out in a week from now and say, oh, it's not in October, but it's in November instead, or it's in 2027 instead. So I don't know what to believe. We'll see what happens. I think it's a interesting. I don't know if it leaked or like wasn't supposed to come out in podcast form or what happens. Either way, let me know in the chat if you're from VFriends or if you went to a VCon in 2024. I did not get to attend. I was actually not collecting VFriends. I actually had a Series 2 and a book game kind of in 2021, but really started getting involved in the VFriends community and like collecting VFriends after the last VCon. So in like September, October of 25. I heard it was great. All three of them. I heard the first one was amazing. The third one was great. All of them were cool. So I'm personally excited for whenever it does come. Miami would obviously be a fucking sick place to have it as well. So we'll see what happens here. Shout out to Space Faceless. Shout out to everybody in here in the chat. Just so you guys know, I will be doing a giveaway at the end of the stream for people in the comments of the stream tweet. So yeah, let's see. ETH Bitcoin, we move in. To me, guys, I think the bottom's close. I think the top is close. The temporary top is close, and we will retest this lows here pretty soon. So let's see what happens. I guess next time we'll come on the stream here on. I guess we'll come on the stream here on Friday. I'm not done by any means. We'll be here for another probably 30-ish, but maybe a little bit less. But I think we'll come back on Tuesday and either be in this channel or potentially below it. And yeah, these channels that I have drawn here are just depicting what I believe are wedges or corrective channels, which we oftentimes see in corrections. Essentially, we are in kind of a bearish phase here, I believe. Obviously, since October 25, we saw a mini correction to the upside here in January, got another move down. And what I think we're seeing here is very likely a mini correction again to the upside that very likely produces at least a retest of this low, if not a fresh low, very likely sometime in this month, next, into the summer, probably putting in a final low at that point in the summer to the fall of 2026, if I had to guess. I know that might not be what everybody wants to hear. I'm extremely bullish long term on crypto, but like I said, I like to call it like I see it and potentially help people who are collecting NFTs or who are longing or potentially longing the top of here, whatever, to at least give you what I'm doing. Doesn't mean that you should blindly follow what myself or anyone is doing. I hope, take the information that I'm giving, research it yourself. If it makes sense, if it fits into your plans and what you're doing, great. If not, we're just sharing perspectives here. And I want to hear yours in the chat as well. Gary V shilling NFT. Gary V has had Veecon VFriends for a long time, my friend. About 5 years now. Four coming up on 5 years. Are NFT events like Veecon still relevant in the cycle, or does Veecon actually move markets in? I think Veecon will be a lot of fun when it does happen, though. I'm excited. Let's see what's going on in the timeline. Let's see what's going on. 5 ETH firm. SPX has already dropped. Benjamin Cowan says SPX has already dropped 5%. If it continues to drop to 10, we will run the risk of entering the negative feedback loop I have mentioned. As of right now, the negative feedback has not happened as layoffs as initial claims remain low. So essentially what Benjamin is saying here is that the stock market coming down will create a negative feedback loop in companies. You'll start to see layoffs coming, which may trigger some type of recession. That's why I think there's a possibility to, while I think price comes down pretty hard here on Bitcoin. Sorry, I think price does come down here pretty hard, Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, and probably could potentially put in the bottom here in the summer. We also do have to be aware that we could enter some type of recession that pushes prices down for 3, 6, 9 months, or really probably 3, 6, 8 months, something like that. So either way, I think some great opportunities are coming if we do get that move. Are you looking to short? Yeah, if we do get the break of that channel like I was talking about, I will be shorting pretty heavily there. Does adoption of crypto really affect prices? Long term, yeah, of course. More people who have wallets, more people who are trading crypto, long term, I believe, will produce more people trading, which more people buying meme coins, more people buying NFTs, all these different things. So yeah, I do think long term it does contribute to more people buying. What else is going on? I'm gonna do that giveaway here in about 5 minutes. Oh, we're gonna do uh, a quick chart review slash lesson. I'm gonna do here in a second. That's funny. Bro's got his look-alike. Shout out to Ash. Oh, I'm not sharing this fucking tab. Damn it. Should have an automatic thing. But what was I gonna think? But NFTs this week, let's just quickly review. I don't think much has happened. There was the Nibbles drop last week that kind of was pretty popular. I think they've come down a bit here. That one did a little bit of produced a little bit of hype. But really, NFTs, guys, I'm a big believer that over the next few years, one of two things is going to create a big resurgence for the floor prices of a few NFT projects from 2021. And what that's going to be determined by is a few things. I think we're entering a digital age where crypto is going to become very, very relevant. And in that case, the original or at least the great crypto artists like Beeple and Xcopy, and I'm not a huge crypto art guy, so I'm missing a lot. But just like people like those guys, crypto punks kind of fall in that category a little bit too, where I think as the digital becomes bigger thing, those artists are going to be very important. The big sweet spot, the real like what people call PFPs, which I think they're really still a lot of people are missing the whole point of these things, and the beauty of these quote unquote PFPs is that really they belong to IPs, right? The NFTs of 2030 that are going to be worth 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, $1 million are going to be the ones that are the original NFTs or collectibles of the next Pokemon or the next fucking Yu-Gi-Oh or the next Disney. Crazy, I know it's crazy to say the next whatever it may be. That the original collectibles of those NFT collectibles of those are the ones that are going to be worth a lot. Now, I believe VFriends, for example, and a few others are set up to really off the back of digital collectibles and NFT technology also becoming big, become potentially the Disneys, the Pokemons, the Yu-Gi-Ohs, the whatever else of tomorrow. And again, there's a few projects I think can do it, and maybe none of them do it. Maybe there's collections that haven't come out or products that haven't come out yet that are the Pokemon of tomorrow that launched through NFTs. But I think VFriends is really set up nicely to everything they're doing and just now starting to tell the stories with the comics to set up to become a huge IP outside of crypto and use the crypto technology to really to flourish. So to kind of tie that all together, I think right now there's some pretty sweet opportunities in some of these PFP or IP plays. The VFriends I think is the biggest no brainer at 1 ETH. But you have Pudgy Penguins, Mutants, Apes, Azuki, whichever one of these things. Obviously, you want to collect what you love to collect. That's what I'm doing this year, especially. But as far as like a speculation standpoint, uh, bet on the projects that you think are going to be that people are going to fall in love with outside of crypto that has nothing to do with airdrops or holder utility or any of that. Pokemon, Disney, Yu-Gi-Oh, everybody falls in love with the storylines and the characters. That's why I believe millions of people, tens of millions of people around the world are going to fall in love with VFriends, that the characters, because of the traits, because of the storylines that are just starting to come out. And in that case, the 10,000 NFTs, 40 of each character, I think are going to be worth exorbitantly a lot more than they are now. So, do macro GM brand, do you farm airdrops? Not really lately. If there's any airdrops, that you like coming up, let me know. Yeah, but crypto doesn't really have the best image nor first impression. Yeah, that's gonna go up and down. The internet, all these different, you know, sectors had kind of a bad perception at first. But think of the volatility of crypto adaptation comes messy PA. Yeah, but as it gets bigger, it'll have less messy PA. It's only it's up only to us to promote it. Am I into DLM pools collecting fees using consolidate? No, I'm not, but I have dabbled in the MEV stuff or the pool stuff before. What's your NFT PFP? It's from Good Vibes Club. These guys right here. These are another one I believe in that I think they're going to build something really outside of crypto as well. These guys are beasts. GM brand. Do I farm airdrops? I think you heard me. Do macro factors like rates and liquidity matter more than technicals for the? I think they both matter, brother. I look at the charts. I think that gives me more edge. I think the macro and all this stuff is super minute to minute and don't really set up ahead of time like the charts do. Yeah, I should have stabled 3 months ago. Hey, Brent, thanks for the insights. Yeah, no problem. Not the lows to buy 10% lower. Yeah, exactly. I didn't stable either. I had Euphoria at 90K. Yeah, I stabled on the way up, but definitely didn't stable a ton at the top. But Brent, what's the one coin you're bullish on nobody talks about? Nobody talks about? I don't know. I think not many people are talking about the movement coins right now, and I still think MOG, Giga, SPX, those bounce back hard. But again, could go down 50, 60% for all I know first. Alrighty. I'm gonna go ahead and do that giveaway here in just a second. If you want to follow Permable, follow Permable. Stop saying people are doomers. Benjamin Cowan's a real motherfucker. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and do the giveaway here in just a second. Shout out to everybody who hung out today. Again, if we do get this move down on Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, if we do get this move down, it could get hectic for a while. You're gonna get a lot of people saying crypto's over, especially not over, but like gonna go into a long-term winter, especially if you hear, especially if you are. Especially if there's a recession or some kind of financial crisis that comes along with it, layoffs start to come. Prepare yourself for a lot of people trying to, especially in the outside world, trying to tell you why would you be paying attention to crypto right now? The markets are falling. Nobody likes crypto anymore. People are just going to use prediction markets, sports betting, all of that. Get ready. But I'm telling you, like putting in the work now, simply like it doesn't have to be some huge like, oh, put in the work, stick around, survive, like some crazy esoteric thing. It's simply keeping your mind fresh in the charts, all that stuff. Maybe look 10, 15, 30 minutes a day studying charts, and then maybe an hour, 2 hours if you have time, listening to podcasts and interviews and stuff from smart people in the space, keeping your head fresh, continue to stick around. And then if you have the luxury of DCAing, do that and wait this thing out, man. I'm telling you that the other side of this thing, I think, is going to be better than anything we've seen, because I think it's going to come with real adoption of the technology. Yo, Brent, shall we talk about white whale? Looks to be holding up. Yeah, let's go and look at that. Oh, by the way, maxing today is a good example of a coin that kind of, I bought. Luckily, my boy Bra told me to buy a bunch, like under 1 or 2 mil, but could come down lower. Don't get me wrong. Like, in fact, if the markets do come down, I think maxing probably does come down, but I would be looking probably to buy if it did do something like that. Of course, it doesn't have to be that severe, but if somehow we did get something like that, I would be buying a lot of maxing. Or I say a lot, but I'd be buying some maxing. Y'all know I do not talk about meme coins a lot lately, especially movement memes. But anybody who's been around anywhere the last few months on the internet knows that maxing has been everywhere. You talk about the term looks maxing, obviously, he's kind of started off. You have the NFL today, or the last few days, starting to put free agent. They put free agency maxing in their bio. Obviously, the maxing term is just massive right now. This is something that I'm not huge on short term trends, but if you're able to take advantage while the trend is kind of just blowing up, obviously, if you'd have bought here or here, you're in way up way more. But I think maxing has going to have some legs. Now, of course, macro has a lot to do with it right now. Bitcoin comes down, so too will maxing. But when Bitcoin bottoms out later this year, this is one I would keep an eye on because I think looks maxing, lean maxing, chart maxing, fucking interview maxing, like I think that term is just going to continue to have steam moving forward. But you mentioned all-time highs are not probable. How many X's from there are probable? I don't know. A13R. It's great to see you, man. Shout out to you. It's cool to see you back in the Discord and be friends. What do you believe is a solid cadence to DCA something like ETH? Weekly, daily, or monthly? Amazing question, brother. I think it's everybody's preference. For me, I like to do weekly. I do two things, man. Uh, I do weekly. I'll just do a weekly DCA every Monday. I'm DCAing on Coinbase, Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and a few stables I have set up. I'm sorry, a few alts that I have set up there. And then if I see a huge move down, a 10 or 15% move down on Bitcoin in one day, or 20% move down in a week, I'll do a manual DCA there too. Like big, any big down days, I will do it manually. But I really like weekly, but it really depends on your goal. You might do every 2 days, weekly, doesn't matter. You can set it automatically. But the way that I just preference, like I kind of already have my stables just sitting there, but I like to do weekly. Some people get paid once a month. They have to pay their rent, and two other bills in one paycheck, and they might wait till that second paycheck to really buy like a lump sum. Depends on you, right? But great question, man. It's really great to see you here. Um, 1 second here. I'm gonna do that giveaway here in about 1 minute. I3R. But let's see. All right, Bren, what's your view on Pump Fund's today's update? What do they do today, Pump Fund? I didn't see. On-chain agents are taking over, and we're building tools to accelerate the agent economy on Pump Fund. The first step, automated buybacks for tokenized agents. Our solution to build this gap between. Interesting. So they're doing buybacks of tokenized agents. Essentially, it looks like they're trying to incentivize people to do the agent tokens. Interesting. Sweet. Yep. I'll talk about it in a second. AI agent model, auto buyback and burn. Yeah. Yep. The trenches is flooded with agents token right now. What are some good ones? Somebody tell me in the chat some ones I can pull up really quickly. While I do that, I'm going to go ahead and do the giveaway again. Shout out to you, brother. I don't know how I didn't already follow you back, but I appreciate you for you coming on. 13R. What else can I call you except fucking 13R, bro? Unless that's What's your preferred name? Shout out to everybody commenting again. Space Faceless. We got a few homies. We got Miss Chaos. Shout out to everybody here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that giveaway right now from the comments of the stream tweets. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. And then after this, I'm going to do a quick chart review or chart workshop. Okay. Alrighty. The winner of this one is going to be my maxing brother Saucy here. Looks like we are not following each other yet. I don't know if you came into the stream from my boy Bra, maybe commenting on it or whatever. Shout out to you. Maxing again is a solid coin that I would be keeping an eye on, especially if we do get another leg. Again, not to be a bear, this setup it might not happen, right? I think this is just a possibility I'd be looking for. If, oops, let me share it. If Bitcoin were to come back down one more time, I do think I would be looking to buy some more maxing on another low here. But Agent Smith, Rob is fine. Okay, shout out to you, Rob. Are you you're a friend of Lynchy, right? Are you in the UK? Yeah, the pump token. I thought they wanted to do an airdrop then. Yeah, I don't know. I think the pump token, the abstract token, a lot of these others are going to be saved for a later time in the year when there's better conditions. That's personally what I think. So, shout out to Saucy for the giveaway win. And yeah, guys, I think we're really waiting for Bitcoin to move down here. I personally, other than being somebody who's going to short this low because the setup here because I think it is with proper confirmations. Other than this looking like the proper setup, I would love nothing more than this setup and this setup and correction, everything, bear market, whatever you want to call it, to accelerate quickly, and we're done with this in the in the coming weeks. I think the faster that this bear market accelerates to the downside, the quicker we get done with this bear market, we get back to the good times. So I say the good times, but right now is the good times. We're blessed to be here. We're blessed that our industry continues to gain mainstream prominence. Institutions. I still think there's going to be like a digital asset renaissance in the next few years, where digital asset technology is just going to be at the forefront of everything. Video games, everything, AI agents using the blockchain to transact, NFTs used for everything in contracts, real estate deals, collectibles, verification tool, crypto speculation with meme coins and on-chain trading and AI coins and prediction markets, and all these things are going to be at the forefront of so many different things. And what that's going to create is mass adoption for wallets, NFTs, and it's going to have way more people messing with these things than like we are than are already happening. So I'm personally excited, and yeah, no, I say this same fucking cliche shit. It sounds every single stream, but I know it's really easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom shit, especially if we get another move down. Prepare yourself, especially if there's some type of recession or even like scares of a recession. There's going to be people telling you, why are you paying attention to crypto? Pivot to AI, which there's nothing wrong with AI, but pivot to AI, pivot to fucking real estate, pivot to this, whatever else. But again, these are the times to double down, pay attention, DCA, especially if you can, and wait until this shit ends. So I think probably this is the last low if and when we do get it, especially if it's a big kind of severe move down. But yeah, we'll come back on next stream here on Tuesdays. I do these streams every Tuesdays and Fridays at 11:30 to 12 usually, between 11:30 and 12. Trying to stick closer to that 11:30 mark for everybody. 11:30 a.m. PST. Have had a lot of great guests this last year with Basement Ron, my boy Poppy, a lot of great other friends and smart people in the space. Looking to do a lot more of that this year. especially during this downside. So if you have any friends or yourself or anybody who has an interesting story, some type of expertise or whatever, and you want to come on and chop it up on stream, let me know. And so definitely Tuesdays, come back on Tuesday for the next one. I'm going to start streaming and actually doing a Twitter space with my boy Hemdog. We started doing it last year, but his work schedule picked up like crazy, and a lot of other um, a lot of other stuff. But we're going to start to do these streams every week on Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST. We're going to be talking about a lot of the events that are going on currently, like in crypto and NFTs, a lot of headlines. We will do a crypto review and stuff like that, but really just want to spark conversations amongst the NFT communities, crypto communities, amongst these different topics, especially during this time when there's not a lot going on. People can come share their topics, maybe vent a little bit, do a little bit of freaking therapy, some group therapy when during this time of insanity. But yeah, really want to start these Twitter spaces. So definitely set your schedules for that. We're going to start this Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST. We'll do a lot more promoting at this time. But if you want to come up, ask a question yourself, we're going to have a lot of cool other founders and other people on naturally, and really solidify that's Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST space as a time anybody can come on and talk about their favorite NFT or whatever's going on in crypto or whatever the hell it is. So set your reminders for that 7 a.m. PST, and we'll be announcing that here soon as well. Looking forward to the stream. I'm in Australia. Lynchy is great. Okay. Yeah, no, Lynchy is great. Brent, would you start doing Twitch? Yeah, I am actually streaming on YouTube already. Quick plug, as you guys can see on the top right, if you guys have enjoyed this stream at all, you've been on at all during the last several months, if you could do me a favor and go on especially Instagram and TikTok, obviously follow on X if you aren't already, but go to TikTok and Instagram for me, YouTube as well. Follow at Bren Trades. I need to change this. I did just change the Instagram to Bren Official. But if you type in Bren Trades, it'll come up. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok especially. Going to start putting up the clips there and face content and other good stuff here soon. So definitely follow those, comment on it, comment on some posts, whatever. Show your boy some love. And I'll definitely shoot you a follow back if you shoot me a DM. Yeah, no worries, brother. Again, I hope everybody's having a good, solid time. I know even people who aren't full-time crypto or haven't made $1 million, a lot of people identify themselves as a crypto trader during these times. The last few years, you might have stopped going on trips. You might have, broken up with your girlfriend or whatever, like whatever it may be, sacrificed a lot for crypto. A lot of people have time and focus or whatever. And then the market comes down and you lose everything. Like I've seen that a lot of times with people over the years, and then people get to dark places. Um, it's really easy for that to happen, right? Because they identify themselves so much as crypto, and then the market goes down for 6 months or 2 years or a year, and maybe they haven't experienced the bear market. But just know, I'm telling you right now, especially now with crypto turning into the mainstream and all of this stuff, I promise you it gets better. You can lose everything. I've lost everything in crypto after you know, after making a good amount. Like after my first bull run, that second bear market, and so I've lost almost everything, and then I have to build it back again, and it's tough. It hurts inside. Like it's fucking, you have to eat it. But I'm telling you, all the lessons you learn from losing and eating those losses and not taking those profits and whatever the fuck else are gonna be what gets you to there that second time. Like every smart, successful person in crypto and NFTs, almost all of them have lost it all at least once or lost a lot, have taken some big L's. So if that's you, or you're just kind of feeling lost, I'm telling you, keep fucking going. I promise you, in this next run up, I think crypto is going to reach places that none of us ever fucking dreamed of, and that only comes for the people who stuck around and kept going. I think we'll watch this kind of clip here to kind of end the stream. Something that I retweeted a few days ago that I think is pretty fucking accurate, and yeah, it says not realizing the entire global financial system is about to move on chain, and 99% of people don't even own crypto yet, and you're part of the 1.1% that does. That's a reason. So with that, guys, like it says, I think the entire global financial system, collectibles, video games, everything is going to be put on the blockchain over the next 5 or 10 years. You're extremely early. I think all of us are. I think so many different companies are going to sprout out using blockchain technology, using NFTs to raise money. Like so many of these NFTs did, VFriends, all these others did 4, 5, 10 years ago. I think we're all pioneers, and we all had to go through a bunch of tough times, up and downs, fake outs, everything to get there. But you're still here, and I'm excited to be here with all of you. We'll be back on Tuesday at 11:30 ish p.m. PST. I'll try to stick. I'll stick to 11:30 this week. No guests yet for this Tuesday, but remember, set your reminders every Tuesdays and Fridays. There'll be more giveaways, more cool guests on, and then also that Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST. Make sure to tune into that as well. Shout out to Perlin Peppy. Shout out to Crypto Batman. Shout out to Sod. Shout out to No Joe. Not Ro Jenkins. No, not Ro Jins. Yeah, I got a link tree. I'll send you. Brand, would you start? Yeah, Twitch. Shout out to No Trojans. Shout out to 13R. Shout out to Sod. Shout out to Crypto Comrade. Shout out to Mr. Empathic. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to everybody. Oh, sorry. Dookie, under VG, everybody who tuned in. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Be safe. Keep your head up, even if the market gets crazy for the next few months. I think the best is yet to come. Absolutely. Shout out to Gardner, Greg. Good to see you here as well. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Make sure to like, comment, retweet the stream, watch it back. We talked a lot about Bitcoin, Veecon, all this great stuff going on. Love you guys. See you on Tuesday. Peace.